Good afternoon. My name's Adam Cohen. I'm with the Merant PVCS telesales organization here in Hillsborough. We're going to be doing a first part of a two-part training today. The part we're going to deal with, what we're looking at is a training called the proof step. We're looking at investigating our sales processes and methodologies. How do we do what we do, right? And how can we do it better? We're focusing on a step that we've traditionally not really worried about as a telesales function. We have over time relied on other people to do this for us. We're finding now that technology has changed to the point where we can own this piece of the process. And there are a variety of reasons why we might want to. So we're going to look at, over a couple of phases, how do we do that? Today we're going to be talking about the first section of that, which we're going to call the TIG piece, which is the technical information gathering. There are a number of people who have expressed other ideas for that name, not tied to the name. It's what the SAs have traditionally called it. Next week we're going to come back and look at specific demonstration presentation methods. And some tools. We're also going to talk about some tools we're rolling out today in terms of helping you gather requirements a little better, helping you define your customer's agenda, helping you re-engineer vision in a way. And this is not intended to be different from anything that we've taught before, anything from solution selling. We're actually looking at specific places where solution selling didn't give us everything we need. I'll talk about what I mean by that. We have a couple of challenges this year about doing what we do over the phone. The first of them is, the biggest challenge I got handed this year was the 100K bar. And at first I had difficulty understanding how I was going to fit that into my business to make my business better. What's the advantage for me in this? It's very easy to focus on negatives whenever a change comes up. It's hard to see what the positives are right away. So it took me a while to come up with, how did this help me? And the way this helped me was, well, first of all, let's look at what some of the questions that this posed. We're not on site in deals under 100K, right? And we haven't been as much as we used to be. And the theory is, well, our competitors are there, we need to be there. But one of the things I'd ask you is, are your competitors really there, or are they using these technologies also? I know from a conversation I had with somebody who's at Start Team today, who used to be here, that they're using Placeware to do a lot of the demos that they used to do in person because they've also had staffing issues just like we have. These technologies that we have available to us let us do things a little differently. So when we've traditionally done these handoffs, you go into your process, you go on site, suddenly we're not there, we're not in control. You're handing off the sales cycle to somebody else. Now in under 100K, if you send an SA out to a customer site, he's going to go with, if it's a 40K deal, you get an SA to go, he's not going with a field rep typically. Now you're relying on your SA, who is not a sales resource. He's assistant to the process. He's our technical expert to act as a salesperson, right? Which has inherent risks. I'm not saying it's always bad, and there are many of them who pull it off beautifully, consistently. But the question is that how we want our process to be? Are our competitors salespeople selling? Right? And if they are, we want our salespeople selling our product, not relying on our technical people to do it. Traditionally, you can only do so much over the phone, right? It was difficult to demo product when I first got here, because we didn't have the means to. Today the technology exists for us to handle all the steps of a process, all the steps we do in a sales cycle, right from your desk. The other challenge we have is, take my territory for example, I don't have an SA up until very recently who lived anywhere near my territory. If I wanted to go and do a demo for any of my customers, I had to put somebody on an airplane. And we had to possibly do a hotel and we had to fly, so the cost of doing a demo got very high. So I started getting resistance to going on site under a certain dollar threshold. Take under 50K, if it's a 20, 30, 40K deal, is it worth our time to put people on planes and do demos? Can we do it another way? In our case, the web changed everything, right? We started with some web, when we first put out the iNet versions, we were able to start showing basic capabilities. Today we can do a much more advanced show in that way. We can give the exact same meeting that we've traditionally given in the field, right, from here. And a lot of you have done it. I mean, if we get a show of hands, how many of you have done Placeware demos? Right? So half the room's done them already, right? So you guys are using the technologies. What we're looking to do is not, for those of you who aren't doing them, if you don't feel it fits your process, that's great. For those of you who are doing them, that's fabulous too. What we're looking at is when we do these things, we want to do them consistently. We'd like to make sure, I'd like to make sure that anytime anybody talks to any Merant customer, that they're going to present it in a consistently professional way, that they're going to make certain specific points that we feel are the right messaging points, that customers aren't having radically different experiences because they're talking to different people. there are a few things we do in the solution selling process, right? Obvious stuff. Find a sponsor, find his pain, access power, define a sequence of events, do a proof step, and then close the guy. And if all of you think back to the way solution selling talked to us about this, that proof step was sort of this really undefined thing, right? Solution selling spent all this time talking about how do you find a sponsor, how do you get to pain, how do you access power, how do you define a sequence of events, how do you negotiate, right? But the proof step was always, and then you do the proof step. And there really wasn't much more there. And it left me with the impression that, well, we're supposed to rely on our technical people. Our tech guys are going to go and do that. And that's not wrong. They are going to do the technical proof. But technical proof isn't always enough, right? You need to tie it back to business issues. Salespeople need to run that process. There are lots of steps in here that aren't up here. This is like the real high-level view. So we want to focus on today is solution selling may have left the proof step undefined, but we can't afford to. We need to be consistently on top of how we're talking about our product to our customers, controlling that process from a sales perspective. That doesn't mean that you go do the demo, right? It doesn't mean that you have to know anything more technologically than you know today. What it does mean is that I need to, every time I do a demo, take responsibility for running that meeting, right? Because we own the whole sales cycle. And if we're not controlling the proof, right, who is? Who are you relying to sell your product for you, right? Because even if you find power, even if you access pain, right, you can find their pain, you get to the power guy, you talk about it, at some point they're going to demand proof. And proof can take a lot of different forms. In this training, we're going to talk about one aspect of proof, right? So proof for some customers is a reference. For some other customers, it's or building a return on investment model. The vast majority of our customers want to see a demo. Show it to me, right? Or they want to play with it. So, I mean, what are the inherent risks of them playing with it? We do evals and they go on forever, right? What we want to do is, hold on. We want to help the customer define what the proof is. We want the proof to be something we can control. Eval cycles are notoriously difficult to control, so what is easy to control? A demonstration, a targeted meeting based on specific customer requirements, which we help them define, is much easier for us to control. If we can put the power in your hands to manage what the customer's expectations are going to be, to give them exactly what they want to see, and to do it in a way that you control the time frame, and there aren't a lot of undefined future things that have to happen. Oh, Bob needs to look at it too. He hasn't had a chance to play with it. He'll play with it in a month from now, right? And then you lose control of your sales cycle in the middle. So there are a couple of steps, right? The first thing we want to do is gather requirements. Really, that's your opportunity to define the vision. How many? If anybody could pipe up, what are the percentage of your customers in the 20 to 60K space who actually have formally written requirements when they call you? Right? Would you say it's 10%? Would you say it's 100? I think it's much lower. It's probably 25% at best. And when we do get those requirements from customers in that space, what we typically get is 3, 4, 8 bullet points that are so high level they're not specific enough to help us, right? They're very generic. I need to check in and check out, or I need to manage my issues, right? What we want are a specific technical vision, right? We can take it back to solution selling. We want to help them create a vision. We want to help them define their vision. A guy calls you and he's got 2 pages of specific technical requirements. You're column fodder. You're not the first one in. You're up against the, and if you think it's a good thing that he gave you that list of requirements, I found for me, it's not every time. Because that means I'm heavily competitive with somebody else. If he doesn't tell me that, then he's just I'm a checkbox. But we do have an opportunity to re-engineer, right? What we want to do is, we've been looking at this process. How do we do this? And we find there's a tremendous variance. I've talked to a lot of you guys in the room about how do you go about this. When we got together as a group to look at how do we make this better, everybody did it a little differently. So we want to create a standard way that guy calls you up and says, I want to see a demo. What do you do next? Right? I've gotten 50 different answers to that. There should be one, which is we'd help them define their requirements. Here's a document, and we've gone and created a survey, a requirements definition document, 2 pages, very basic questions that are all technical in nature, that are the things that we need to know so that we can prove the points to them. It also gives us an opportunity to help them define or redefine their requirements. Once we gather those requirements using this document, we have the opportunity to do, and this is what we do in the field today. We'll gather the requirements, we'll go on site, and the field reps don't do a demo. They'll show up with an essay. Best practices are they show up with an essay and they do what we call a technical information gathering meeting, where we go over their requirements. They say, tell us how you do business. Tell us why this is important. You said you need this and this and this. Why? Explain it to us. Help us understand why it's important. And this is a real opportunity to either confirm the vision, create that we can meet their vision in the process, or to re-engineer it. If they're walking in with 15 specific requirements that lead you to believe that they're already looking at Star Team or they're already looking at Rational, doing the TIG meeting after you get them to define their requirements to you with a technical resource gives us the opportunity to start pointing them in a direction towards some differentiators. What do we do that we know those other guys don't do well? And we can ask the questions that are about isolating that pain, right? So what we're doing is we're not talking about doing anything differently. We're talking about doing the solution selling activities we've always done in a slightly more structured way, right? We do that meeting, and then we have the opportunity to customize our message. The best field reps, the best SAs are going in and they're not doing generic demos. They're doing custom demos specific to the customer requirements. Because when we do that well, there are no additional proof steps. You don't get okay, now we want to play with it for 2 months. Or can we get another demo? Can you show us how it would work in our specific environment? If we do a good enough job up front. Once we define what is proof with the customer, if the guy says this is only about if they're talking about a demo. So we give you a tool, the requirements definition survey, right? It's and I apologize, I'd intended to print them out and have them as handouts, and I'm sorry, they'll be in everybody's intro when you get back to your desk. It lets us be consistent. It lets us define how we do business. It lets us understand what the customer really needs in his own words. The reason and now why am I telling you guys this and why am I not telling it to the SAs? The SAs already know how to do this. The pre-sales guys already are starting to understand how to do this piece of it. What they can't do, and they've never been good at, they can help the customers define specific technical areas that they might want to improve. It's our job, it's my job when I talk to my customers to tie it back to their specific technical problem, right? Take that problem and tie it back to the specific business issue. They're not going to buy it because they need a feature, they're going to buy it because they have a problem. And the SAs aren't going to tie it back to the problem consistently. That's your job in the demo. So even if you don't add, you feel like, well, I don't want to be involved in that process, I'm not going to add technical value, that's not what you're there for. You're there to keep it on point to the business issues, keep it on point to the why they're going to buy, and listen for those buying cues that you can play to later in the demo.
Hey, Adam?
Yeah.
Question real quick. So, is there any other thing that you see in the actual tool in your arsenal that it does other than just be able to define the requirements itself? Have you ever found a customer who wouldn't fill it out?
Okay. Yes. There are customers who say, no, I don't want to give you all, just show me the product. And those are guys for whom we're trying to improve our process, trying to change the way we want to do this, right? I guess with this, and that's a good point because it takes me back to something I forgot to talk about. The fundamental idea to what we were thinking, Jason and I and John and a few other people, was that the way we do demos today, to a great extent over the web, is that customers don't want a demo, we say, great, let's show it to you, hoping that the customer will be impressed by what they see and will get something out of that. And we do a lot of, and not everybody and not all the time, we do a lot of generic demos. It's just the song and dance, we do the song and dance and hope that they're intrigued by something, right? Customers who want that, that's fine. We have forums for that. We do an open general WebEx every week that the pre-sales guys run. It's a non-customized, here's the product. And it's very tempting to do that today because I firmly believe, to the core of my being, that we have absolutely positively the best products in the market today for doing what we do, right? They're easier to use than they've ever been. They're simple to understand. They integrate well. We have a fabulous product in dimensions. And I don't think there's any competitor who can, technology on technology, really compete with us. But we lose deals. So where do we lose them? It's not on the technology. It's on a process. How do we go about showing it to people? What predispositions do they come to looking at it with? Right? But if all we do is show it to them, we don't have the opportunity to re-engineer their vision. So it really comes down to, we talked about the proof step in that previous model. How do you use demos? Is a demo the proof step? right? Do we use demos to prove or do we use demos to create vision? If a guy says, I want to see a demo, and you just show it to him, are you relying on the demonstration to create the vision for how he's going to use it? Or did you go, before you showed it to him, and create a vision for him? Understand his needs, help him find a vision for how could my life be different and how can PVCS and Merant help me? And then if you do that first, all the demo has to do is to confirm what you said was true. Was that where you're going, Jason?
Yeah, that answers one of them. What if they just won't do it? What do you say as a senior rep?
Well, if they just won't do it, there's a couple of things. From my experience, one of two things going on, right? Either you're flat out column fodder or the guy's not power, right? Either way, do you want to take the time and do a custom demo? Is there anything good that can come of that? Right? You might talk to the guy, understand his needs, send him to the general WebEx and keep on top of him, try to get to the next guy in his chain. There are circumstances where that's not going to be true because there are no generalizations that hold everywhere, right? So there will be times where a guy takes that attitude and you, for whatever reason, decide you want to go through and run his demo for him, and that's great. Right? But think about it before you do it, and do it a few times. If you think that's a good way to do it a few times and look at your close percentage. Right? Or say, what do you lose by saying no? Or what do you lose by sending him to the general? Great, you want to see a demo? Hey, we're doing it Thursday. Feel free to sit in, it's open. I'll send you an email with the URL you need to hit. But I didn't take hours out of my day, helping the guy gather requirements, doing a customized demo. Say he doesn't do any of that. All we do is the demo. How long does the demo take me? It takes my time, it takes Sean's time, or it takes an SA's time. I take Jim Landis and put him on the phone with the customer. We spend 2 hours. Jim does some customization stuff. We try to hit it as best we can. But we find out afterwards the guy maybe wasn't the guy we should have been talking to. That's just a big indicator that maybe he isn't who we need to talk to. So this survey will let you say, guy says, I want a demo. So here, just fill it out. It's some quick, easy technical questions that will help us understand what you need. I have not yet encountered anybody who was actually serious about buying something who wasn't willing to tell us what their environment was like, what other tools they use, how we're going to fit, how they hope to use us, what are the key features they need, right? They're all willing to give you that information. And so what we've avoided in this document is we're not asking people in the requirements definition survey, what's your budget, when do you want to buy, who's your boss, and what's his phone number, okay? So there's nothing in there that's going to make somebody uncomfortable. It's just technical information. We take that technical information back and we do a quick conference call, and we can do that from here. You have pre-sales resources who can assist you. The SAs can also support this process. You might want to use an SA if you're not sure what product it's going to go toward. Basically, you have two people on the phone. You have you, the salesperson, and the technical expert. You each have different roles, and this is not something that you just want to let default to the SA because he can't do the sales pieces of it. So what are they going to do for you? They're going to look at the technical piece. They're going to understand what the customer's needs are. They're going to understand how we fit in, and they can do the customizations for the demo. So what can't they do? What do you need to do? What do I need to do when I do these? I found that I use these meetings to position myself as a credible technical expert. Even if I don't add a tremendous amount of technical value in the conversation, the fact that I'm there and asking occasional questions like, wow, you said you need this technical feature. You said you had this other business issue. Is this why? Right? And I could keep tying it back to the why they are going to buy. Positions me as a credible expert. Makes them that much more likely to take what I say as having value later in the cycle. Also, it's my job to read if are these guys getting it? Are they being interactive? Are these the right people to talk to? The SA is not going to know that. He's just going to be asking the technical questions, and they're going to give him answers. It's your job to read the audience. The other thing is, if we're going to be doing demonstrations from here, which is what we're talking about next week, every meeting you walk into, if you walked into a meeting, you'd want the meeting to have an agenda. You'd want to know what you were going to get into. So you want to set the tone for that. Set their expectations for what we're going to do next week. We're going to come back and do a demo for you in 3 days. This is what it's going to be. The SA can't do that. It's not his role. And I'm not saying they can't like they're not capable. I'm saying it's going to be best done by you because it's your responsibility to make sure these guys buy. So your role. You don't always have access to power when you get to this point. And one of the key tenets of solution selling is that you can trade proof for access to power. Right? And this is your opportunity to do that. We'll gladly do a demo, but only if the power guy is going to be there. Who is he? You'll also have, it's your opportunity to really find out what's the real opportunity. They call you up and say, hey, we've got 20 people we need to talk, but in the TIG, you will typically find out how many peripheral people they really should tie in, how many testers they're not thinking about. Were they thinking about the technical document team? As you get into their process, you're going to find places where, maybe they need 20 seats of version manager, but you know what? They might have needed 40 seats of tracker, not 20, right? Because there are other, and you're going to get that out of those meetings. You're going to be more in tune to those, listening for those cues than a technical person would, which is why you need to be involved in this process. By not being involved in this process, by not being active in it, you leave money on the table. So the SA is really going to be doing two things. They're looking to gather technical differentiators. How can we set ourselves apart? How can we meet their needs? How can we set ourselves apart? And they're going to be they're there to handle any technical issue, question, problem, concern that you don't want to deal with. That's why you don't want to do these calls alone. I'm fairly technical. I've been here for 5 years, and there are questions that come up every time I do this that I don't know the answer to, and I don't want to. Right? Which is why I rely on people like Sean Kleiss and Jim Landis and Mike Ajami to handle these things for me. I keep them on the call. We present ourselves as the most professional possible. I want to back up for a second. The reason I came to do this, the reason I decided this was an important project for me is I was challenged in that I didn't feel like we were consistently coming across as the company we are today. We are an SCM specialty house, and that is how our customers are starting to perceive us. We no longer do microfocus. We don't do data direct. We're not selling agility. We don't have all these other things going on that we need to try to explain to somebody. All we do is digital asset management or software configuration management, whatever term you want to use. This is what we do. If you can express that to people, they will understand we're experts. When they come to us, they're going to start expecting that expertise, and they expect it from everybody they talk to. So let me paint a scenario. They go to you, they go to Start Team. The Start Team sales rep knows nothing about the product and doesn't handle the process. He relies on his technical guy to sell the product. You do all these things, who are they going to buy from? Assuming the products are equal. Right? Assuming the products are equal, the process is going to make the difference. The products are not equal. We have the better product, so it's ours to lose. You can only hurt yourself by not doing these kinds of tasks. So why do it from here? Why do it by Placeware? We have not always done it this way. We didn't have the technology before. When it came time to do the proof step, we would hand it off to the SAs or the field team and say, okay, guys, go prove it. And my experience was the feedback that I got was often of the variety of, great meeting. Fabulous, they loved us. Okay, what do we do next? Oh, you should probably call them and find out what the next step would be. We walk out with incomplete information, or even if complete information came out of the meeting, we don't get it back here. Those handoffs cause us problems. And in this smaller space, the issues are no less important, right? You're not going to have a different cycle because the guy's only spending $40,000 than if he's spending $120,000. It's the same cycle. The same issues are going to come up. You can control as much of this as you choose to, right? It's an easy product to use. We have it in-house. We own the licenses. We have the technology. We have the means to do this. It's very convenient for the customer because they don't have to get everybody in a room. If people are distributed around the country, they can all do it it's a webcast, right? It's a conference call. You also don't have a lot of ramp-up time. You don't say, we can't get there for 2 weeks. You can say, hey, we can do it tomorrow. We can do it 3 days from now. And if you do this well, if you do customized demos, if you show them to the customer, if you knock their requirements out in a demo, they're not going to want to play with the tool for 2 months before they figure it out. They're going to know what they need to know, and they're going to be able to move forward. So how does pre-sales support us in this? Sean Kleiss is here. You might want to say a word or two about this, but the basic bottom line is they have been integral to this process. The pre-sales team was very involved in writing this requirements definition survey. The SAs were very involved in writing it. These are the technical questions we need to know to be able to do our job well. Not every technical question we need to know is down there because we intend this to be the basis for a conversation. So how do we get them involved? We built a tracking system. They rolled it out about a month ago. Many of you have used it. Some of you have seen it. Some of you haven't. There's a tracker project out there that will let you go schedule a TIG. That will let you schedule an online demo. So it's very easy to find a resource. They are our competitive advantage. You don't need to know everything about these products because they do. And they are right here. It's your job to spin it to the customer to meet the customer's needs, to make sure that they get it. But you don't need to know the technology the way they do. And they're right there, they're down the hall, they're here all the time, and our competitors don't necessarily have that at their disposal. They also lend technical credibility, no matter, for those of you who've been around for a while, no matter how much you know about the product, no matter how credible you sound, the fact that it says sales guy on your business card means that they're going to question everything you say, no matter how good it sounds. So having a technical guy on the phone with you helps you. And they're great support for our typical opportunities. And by typical, I mean it's a pro deal. It's a pro deal in that kind of size space where it's not going to grow into a field deal, it's not going to turn into a dimensions deal. They're the perfect resource to use. But that's not every situation we have, right? When we go into a sales cycle, we don't know what products the customer's going to need, right? What is it, 30%, 20, 30% of our sales cycles turn into dimension sales cycles. And it's not necessarily driven by size, it's driven by what do they need. So SAs are also fully available. I know at the beginning of the year they were not able to support us as the way we wanted to. In deals under 100K today, that's different. They're available to support us in any way we need. They're available to support us in this process. Doing these TIGs on the phone, doing demos on the phone, whether it's Dimensions or Pro, doesn't matter. And it allows, basically this, having the choice gives you the opportunity to, you get to pick who's the best resource. The other thing is, I cover Maryland, I have DC. I have a couple of SAs who are nearby to me who can work for me. But what if the best guy in the country to do this particular thing for this particular customer happens to be in Colorado, right? If we're doing it in the field, I can't easily get that guy there. There are costs involved, I'm crossing team boundaries, but if we do it over the web, does it matter where the guy is? If he has an hour free, he can help me. So getting the right technical resource becomes much easier in this format. That's pretty much what I have for today. Next week, we're going to come back and do we've developed a specific presentation in terms of how do you do that presentation meeting, right? How do you open the meeting? How do you close it? What are the things you say? What are the points you want to make sure you hit? And we built a specific set of PowerPoints, which is your piece in the meeting. We're not going to ask you to demo the product, but we also shouldn't ask the SAs to run the meeting. It's not their role. It's your role. I did this sort of a lecture format because it's, but I encourage you, if any of you have any questions about what we talked about, any comments, as I said before we started, this is not about me or Jason or John Merdler or the managers telling you how to go run your business. This is, we decided to put our heads together and come up with what are the best things we do? What are the things that we've done that consistently work well? So we need your input. If we're going to have this evolve, if it's going to be relevant 6 months from now, you guys are the ones talking to customers. So if any piece of this doesn't work, if anything doesn't make sense, if you want to call any of this bullshit, feel free. But help us by making it better. So that's all I got. Anybody have any questions?
It's more of a comment on specifically on Placeware. Two things for you guys to note. First of all, we get great support for them because there's 3 or 4 former Merant people over there. Second, with Placeware, unlike WebEx, what happens with Placeware is the customer does not have to download an applet. Okay, they just strictly web, just like they would go find any kind of HTML web page. That's huge because in WebEx what used to happen is they'd have to download something, and if it didn't work precisely, they'd have to open up their firewall to allow us to pipe in there. Post September 11th, there's not a lot of people willing to do that. So when it comes to WebEx versus Placeware, what you need to tell your customers is you will not have to download an applet. Second thing is, when you're having your SA or your pre-sales person set it up, make yourself a presenter as well. You may need to grab control of the, talk to your SA prior, but you can actually control the demo if for some reason that person's system crashes, the demo's still live. While they're rebooting the computer, you're a salesperson. You can fill the time, you can move to the next slide, you can talk about the slide up. The person will be able to get back onto the system, get back into the Placeware demo, and the customer will never know you were down. With WebEx, if a presenter crashed, the whole thing was over. And that's key to note because the technology, one of the things Adam talked about, Placeware's technology is very good and very well suited for what we do. Make sure you're in control by also being a presenter on the particular call.
It's designed as a sales presentation tool. It was designed for people like us to use. It was not designed with SAs in mind, right? It's based on our skill sets and what they expect us to be able to do. The other thing is, for those of us who haven't ever been trained in how do you present in Placeware, I'm sure we can take it to Brant and he can arrange some kind of an open forum we could do in one of the role plays. Maybe we could cover it, or have the technical people present to us. If anybody doesn't feel like they have the skills to do that, or they want to learn how to do it, bring it up, and I'm sure we can address it. For a small fee from Brant. Some of you have used the document that I'm talking about. I think that the feedback I've got has been very positive. We've iterated a couple of times. We've made changes to it. We're going to continue to do that. Does everybody? There'll be more coming next week, which is what we're going to talk about, which is the proof step part 2, which is running the demo. Presentation methodologies, right? It hasn't been a big part of our job because we weren't doing really presentations from here. Some of our technologies really lend themselves to this, especially the WCM stuff, right? People are, especially, and I point out, post-September 11, I'm having much less difficulty from customers being willing to sit in these kinds of things. When I say to somebody, hey, we can do the demo over the web, they're like, great. People are much more accommodating. So, any other questions? No? Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for taking the time. We'll come back next week and we'll do something that's a little bit more interactive because it's going to be about the actual presentation itself.
Great. Cool.
Thanks.